Welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. We're talking about some of the stuff that's been coming out of Donald Trump's mouth last week. Not a whole lot of it very good. None of it really uplifting or positive, which is a problem for him. And but it's
and Hillary too, because there's nothing uplifting about what's come out about her either.
It's very no, not this. I'm talking about the stuff he's actually been talking about: a rigged election, how everyone's against him. I mean, if you were winning, Pat, you wouldn't be saying that. If he were winning, he would not be talking about a rigged election.
Well, what? Well, oh man, I'm going to get myself in trouble with my board. But the bottom line is Trump has what we call a fractured ego. And what that essentially means is, for whatever reason, he has to run around and brag about everything he's accomplished, even though he's a billionaire. And one of those things he brags about is sexual conquest. One of those things he brags about is, all the things he can do. And the problem is when you're talking about people being thin-skinned, that's part of the problem. And he can't let this go. If he'd have said, listen, these allegations aren't true, and of course, apparently one of these, and I haven't verified this, so I'm just repeating stuff that I haven't verified yet. But apparently one of the ladies that accused him works for the Clinton Foundation. We can point out, listen, I'm not going to denigrate these girls. It's not true, and I'm going to move on with my campaign. But like you said, he cannot let it go.
He can't.
And it's because it's such a wound to his ego.
Here's what's
that he can't do it.
Here's what's interesting to me. So, and I want to hear your take on this. Does anybody care? Or has anybody noticed how, at the second debate, he was going after Hillary for how viciously she attacked some of Bill's accusers, right? Just went after them lock, stock, and barrel. And he said some really mean, some really hurtful, disgusting things. And now he has come out and called them disgusting liars, and in some instances commented on how they're not pretty enough for him to have assaulted. Or I just is the irony lost, or is that something that people just don't seem to care about?
Well, I think both of it. I think the irony is lost. I think he just needs to move on and say, listen, these allegations aren't true. And he can make a very good, because, I study this kind of stuff forensically. And one of the things you usually get with Bill Cosby, there was a history of allegations. With Bill Clinton, there was a history of allegations. With Jack Kemp, there was a history of allegations. Who was that guy? Gary Condit. There's a history of allegations there too. That's what made him look so guilty with Chandra Levy. And the problem is here, there's really not there's a history of him philandering, but there isn't a history of being accused and having to settle out of court, being accused and settling out of court.
Well, that's not exactly true either.
Well, we're all right. Correct me.
USA Today. Now, it wasn't some of the lawsuits were. Let me back up. USA Today came out with a story where they were going through a lot of the lawsuits that have been filed against Donald Trump. There's been a lot of them. That's not a surprise. That happens. You're going to when you are, especially when you're a real estate developer, if you have any kind of money whatsoever, you're going to be sued by lots and lots of people, lots and lots of times. That's just how the nature of the business works. But there were there were about 21 lawsuits that they found over the years, a few more than that maybe, where women had sued Trump, the Trump businesses, his managers, and also had given testimony about him specifically. Not very many out of that 21, maybe a handful, like 2 or 3, where he would make rude, harassing comments about how they needed, at one of the golf courses, they needed to hire prettier servers so he could come in and look at some good-looking women when he was there. There was a couple of allegations of some sexual harassment at one of the companies that, from him personally, not very many. I'm not going to say he was sued 21 times for sexual harassment, because that's not what the story is claiming, but it was that there was there's a suggestion in the story that there was at least a mild culture of that sort of behavior. Now, is that any better or any worse than a lot of companies from that era, from the 80s into the early 2000s? Probably not. But if we talk about a history of things, I don't think that it's a very big reach to say that Donald Trump has not had the best history with women, full stop. Well, and be that as it may, you're talking about words versus actions, number one. But and number two, you're also talking about a concerted, effort by
the media to bring these stories forward now? You know, why not bring these stories forward while he was running before he got the nomination? Why not do it at those times? I can tell you, having run for office, they will hold what they can and then try to manipulate that election. Same thing happened with Brad Zahn and his girlfriend with what's his face, Bosler. What was his name? Boswell. And then, look at how he got smeared. So for me, there's, I'm not talking about a vast left-wing conspiracy, because if it's really happening, it's not a conspiracy. So, that's part of the issue. Now,
you also had him on tape confirming the stuff that he's being accused of, the stuff that he liked to do. That's the biggest. The biggest difference.
And my point, the next point I'm going to make is, obviously, I think you would agree, at least the last week and maybe the last two have been the worst of Trump's campaign.
Yes.
Period.
His response has been horrible.
It has been. Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
How come Hillary isn't wiping the floor with him in the polls? You have one poll where he's up 11%, or where she's up 11%, but all the rest of them, they're either just within the margin of error or they're barely ahead. And I look at this going, how come there isn't a 20-point lead? And you look at it, even today, I was looking at a poll that was taken over the weekend. Even today, Hillary is still less popular than Trump. And I'm like, and Trump is still polling. We've talked about this consistently between 40 and 45%. And I'm like, if this is so damaging and they're really going after him hard and she is not getting a giant bump, then really, what is Hillary doing wrong? Trump is doing everything he can do to self-destruct. That's the truth. And you can come up with all kinds of excuses for what he's doing, and that's true too. But how come Hillary coming out and, geez, this is just unacceptable and we should be doing a lot better in the polls?
She went from nearly tied with him coming out of the Republican National Convention, going off of Nate Silver's blog, where he was slightly ahead coming out of the Republican National Convention, to now she just today has an 87% chance of winning the presidency. I think that's a pretty big bump. Well, and that incorporates everything that's happened over the last couple of months.
Well, yeah, but the problem is that isn't polling numbers.
Polling
that isn't
aggregation is 7%. Hillary Clinton would beat, if the polling holds out the way that it's the way that everyone's predicting it now, she would beat him by at or more than Barack Obama beat John McCain in 2008.
All right. And on that note, we're going to be back after the break because I have some interesting news we talked a little bit about before the show. Like to hear your opinion on that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We couldn't do what we do without you. We will be back